Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Accelerate Your Life podcast. I am your host, Mallory Marks, and you are stuck with just me today. Hope that is okay with you guys. We did have our first guest episode last week. If you missed that one, I highly recommend you go back and check it out. I was joined by one of my good friends, Nicole Neuwirth. She is also one of our assistant coaches over at Accelerate Athletics, and we just talked all things leaving your sport, because I know there are so many people out there, so many of you probably listening, who have played your sport, a sport, your entire life. Maybe you played it through high school. Maybe you were really great and got to the collegiate level or beyond, if there's an opportunity for that beyond. And then one day, like, you age out or you decide to hang up the cleats or whatever. And it is a wild shift. It really is a wild shift. Because you did that your whole life. You didn't have to probably worry about, nutrition to a degree. You didn't have to worry about exercising. Like, all of that was really done for you. And now you're trying to navigate, not only what does health and fitness and exercise and all of these things look like in my life, but who am I? That was something you did probably every day for hours, every day for 10, 15 years. So anyway, that is what we dove into last week. And if anything I just said, strikes a chord with you, you feel like relates to you, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that episode. But this week, well, first of all, before we dive into this week, I want to acknowledge one thing. Guys, does this audio quality not sound 100 times better? We have a nice new mic. And if you're on YouTube, you can see it. Actually, I don't know if this audio quality sounds better. I just kind of plugged it in and started going with it. I could be too close to the mic. So sorry if you can hear literally every boom of my mouth or whatever. Or it could, there's very much a chance that I record this entire 20, 30-minute episode and there's no audio. So we're going to really hope that one's not the case. But all of that to say, we are really elevating things here and stepping it up. So excited for that. But this episode is actually going to start a little mini series within the podcast that I'm very excited about. And okay, I don't love the name I came up with so far, but it's going to suffice for now. We could change it later, but for now, we're going to call this the Fast Fit Facts series. I'm not going to lie, chat GBT, I can't even say it, helped me come up with that one. And, that's what we got. Oh, some alliteration for you. But really what I want this little mini series to be is a place for you guys to come get quick, factual, basic information about health and fitness. Okay. Because I said this in the first episode, I don't want this podcast to be entirely like fitness, nutrition, but it's going to have some, because I know that's, why you guys followed me in the first place. And a big goal of my life and what I kind of think I'm like here on this earth for is to help uncomplicate a lot of the bullshit. We're going to make this a cussing podcast. A lot of the bullshit out there that health and fitness, has, and diet culture has emphasized and has confused so many people. Like, why can't there just be a simple place to come get information? There's really not. It's everywhere. It's all over the internet. There's so much, everything contradicts each other. Like, where is just the simple place to go get your facts? Well, that's what this mini series is going to be. Okay. So my game plan is to have, they're probably going to be solo episodes, maybe 10 to 20 minutes of some basic topic within fitness and nutrition that I see a lot of our clients or just people in general getting confused and overwhelmed with prior to working with us or whatever. And we're just going to go through it. Okay. So, today's episode is going to be really around understanding your metabolism, understanding calories burned, understanding how that works, and the reason that I want to do this and just do this mini series in general is because I think that there is power in knowledge. Okay. I think to kind of put that together, I think that empowerment comes from knowledge. I think that empowerment comes from education. And when you are confused about fitness and nutrition, and when you have all this swirling information, that's where you feel very just, I don't know, what's the opposite of empowered? What's the opposite? Like a antonym of empowered. I just think it makes you feel like you have no information and you have like, you're just like, oh, I don't understand anything else. I'm not capable of this. And that is when I think a lot of the poor relationships with food and anxiety around exercise and food and body image and all of that really boils up. And when you actually have factual information, you feel in control. Okay. Like, and I kind of think that's the opposite of empowerment actually, is like feeling out of control. At least that's how I feel, is like when I don't feel empowered, I feel like I have no control and it just is spiraling. And then when I like have the knowledge, then and actually understand things, I'm not overwhelmed and I feel empowered by that knowledge. Hopefully that makes sense. I think some people can relate. So basically, like when you understand the truth about fitness and nutrition, I think you can be free from the anxiety that comes from it. That many have from it. You know, that food fear, that food anxiety. A lot of that I have found for myself and clients comes from just being overwhelmed by not understanding, like, am I eating too much? Am I eating too little? What should I be doing? Like, it's all the unknown that creates this fear and then anxiety and then a poor relationship with food. So let's nip that in the bud and actually have the facts and be in control, understand it, be empowered by it. Okay. And today, the first episode here, I think a big thing is just understanding like the truth and the reality behind how calories burned works, because obviously like that's a big talked about thing, right? Like people count their calories and people, want to stare at their Apple Watch and during their workout and try to hit a certain amount. And there's so much focus on like this calories burned output, because the truth is it is part of the equation of body composition, of being healthy. We do have to consider it. But I want to come at this from the angle again of knowledge is power. This isn't an episode telling you like you need to like worry all the time about how many calories you're burning. It's more, hey, if you understand it, honestly, you can kind of worry less about it, or you can take the knowledge to actually make tangible, healthy, sustainable changes that are going to improve the output you're looking for, maybe increasing the output of calories burned, rather than just not being clear on it and then going and having a really unhealthy relationship with exercise and overdoing it, etc. So that is why I wanted to dive into this today. And a big thing I think you guys are going to find out is like, people focus so much on the exercise portion of calorie output, but if you really understand all the places that energy expenditure comes from and how much each place actually, what's the word I'm looking for, actually contributes to calories burned, you might be surprised, and you can actually see and understand how to manipulate it in your favor. And this actually may even cause you to live life more fully, because spoiler alert, you're going to find out that exercise is actually a pretty small portion of calories burned. So you might not need to be killing yourself in the gym all day, every day, and skipping, your brunch with friends and whatever date night just to go get your workout in. Okay. So this might actually even help some of those things. So let's go ahead and dive in. I think that the first thing we need to start with is understanding the definition of total daily energy expenditure, also known as TDEE. That's an acronym you might hear me use a lot during this. So TDEE stands for total daily energy expenditure. And that is exactly what it sounds like. It's the amount of energy you expend total in the day. Okay. And this is basically like in second grader terms, right? Because I said in the description of this podcast episode that we're going to talk about this in a way your kindergartner can understand. It just means the amount of calories you burn in a day. That's all. And so know that going forward for the rest of this, podcast, we're talking about the total, understanding the total daily energy expenditure, understanding how you end up burning all of these calories you do in a day and where these come from. Now there's two sections, I guess you could say, of TDEE. There is resting energy expenditure and non-resting energy expenditure. And we're going to go into each of those. And then there's like subcategories in each one. But yeah, we'll dive into each of those. So first off with resting energy expenditure. Okay. This is exactly how it sounds. It's energy you expend while you're at rest. And I know you're like, how do you like expend calories just like at rest? Well, this is shockingly how we burn the most amount of our calories in the day. So if you take all the calories you burn in the day, your TDEE, the largest percent comes from your resting energy expenditure. And there's only one like thing that makes up resting energy expenditure, and that is your basal metabolic rate, or BMR. Okay, look, I know I said that we would explain this in a way that kindergartners would understand, and I'm going to try, but unfortunately, scientists like to name things very complicated names. So my apologies, but I'm going to break them down. So to kind of go back over that. So non-resting energy expenditure, this is calories and energy expended while you're resting. And the thing that constitutes non-resting energy expenditure is your basal metabolic rate, aka BMR, aka your metabolism. All right. So great. We all know the word metabolism. We can just call BMR metabolism for the sake of the rest of this. And that's just how many calories you burn at rest. Like your metabolism is just the energy that it takes to sustain your functions, your life, you as a human being. Okay. And shockingly, sorry, I just got too close to the mic, so I know that was bad audio. Shockingly, this is 70% of the total amount of calories you burn all day. Okay. I want you guys to let that sink in because I think that this is one of the most freeing pieces of information, and also the piece of information that really shows you where you can make a big change when it comes to your overall energy expenditure. And if you really want a good metabolism and like to be able to, sustain your body comp on more calories, like this is where you need to focus, because 70% of the calories that you burn all day are just burned by you being alive and awake, no matter what you do. And I'm dead serious. Like this means literally you can't be dead, but you could be laying in your bed, just not moving. All you are doing is having your eyes open and you're breathing, and you burn this amount of calories because you are a human being who has a lot of things going on inside of you. You have a lot of, muscle and different things to fuel, and breathing and being just conscious takes energy. Your brain takes energy. So you're burning calories just existing. Okay. So like I said, if there is, anywhere that we'd want to emphasize improving when it comes to if we want our TDE to be higher, right? It is this. Okay. And the only way to really increase your basal metabolic rate is to have more lean muscle tissue. This is why having such a focus on strength training is so beneficial beyond just physique changes, right? Like, yeah, it helps you have that nice toned physique, but it also literally increases your metabolism to where now it's going to be easier to maintain your weight at a higher amount of calories, and or it's going to be easier to lose body fat without having to decrease your calories so much because your metabolism as a whole is just higher. Because muscle is it's very expensive in terms of energy. It takes a lot of energy to maintain. So the more you have of it, the more you're just burning and churning through calories. So if you want your total daily energy expenditure, the amount of calories you burn, to be higher, strength train and increase your metabolism. Okay. So that's going to wrap up the resting energy expenditure section. Again, that's 70% of the calories you burn. All right. Now the next section, we're diving into the opposite, non-resting energy expenditure. And I think you guys are pretty damn smart and can figure out that that is also exactly how it sounds. Okay. This is the ways that you burn energy that require some sort of action, not at rest, not being at rest, right? There's 3 subsets that make up this one, or 3 parts. Okay. There is, and again, I'm sorry for these names, but I will do my best to explain them, and then we'll have some fun little acronyms for them. So hopefully it'll be easier. But 3 parts. Number 1, exercise, activity, thermogenesis, AKA EAT, EAT, AKA just exercise. Okay. It's just purposeful exercise. Part number 2, and we're going to break all these down. All right. Part number 2 is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, also known as NEAT, NEAT, also basically known as just like things you are doing and movement that you are doing that isn't purposeful exercise. Think like talking with your hands, right? I'm doing that. Like I'm doing right now. This is neat, right? We'll dive into that more in a second. And then the third one is what is called the thermic effect of food, or TEF. And basically this is just, you eat food, you have to digest that food. Digestion is an action that takes energy. So it's the amount of calories you burn digesting your food. So kind of spoiled that. I jumped ahead there because I was going to break all those down in each section, but we'll do that now. Okay. So the EAT, the exercise, activity, thermogenesis, or basically exercise. Let's start with this one because I think that this is the one that people think is the biggest deal and constitutes the most to how many calories you're burning. But funny enough, it is actually the smallest one. Okay. It only makes up 5%. Yes, 5% of the amount of calories that you burn in a day. I want that to sink in because so many of you, and this was me, are focused on your Apple Watch in the gym, your fitness tracker in the gym, how many calories it says you're burning. You're not leaving until you hit a certain amount of calories. All of that work, it matters, but it's only a small portion of the amount of calories that you're burning in a day. And I emphasize this because I know a lot of you have maybe developed a relationship with exercise that is a little bit obsessive, a little bit very dependent on that number, and you place your worth on how many calories you burn. You place was that, can I eat later today based on how many calories you burned in that workout? And it is such a small portion. Okay. So I want that to kind of go home, because this was a life-changing understanding for me. I mean, I was the person who I couldn't miss a workout. I would do my entire schedule around my workouts, and there's pros, right, to prioritizing a workout, but I'm talking another level. This was an unhealthy relationship with it. I couldn't go on family vacation because where would there be a gym, or got to find a rental car so I can get to the gym. I mean, ridiculous. Okay. And it's just not that deep. I want to emphasize it is still important. Obviously, there's a lot of health benefits to exercise, and it is 5%. Like, that is still part of it. And there's many health benefits beyond just burning calories when it comes to exercise, specifically if you're strength training, right? I just talked about how, putting on lean muscle, while you might not be burning as many calories, you are putting on lean muscle that's going to increase your metabolism and how many calories you burn overall in the long run. That's a little bit of a side tangent, but that's why I teach people that yeah, your Apple Watch may not be burning as many calories if you're lifting weights versus if you're running and doing a ton of cardio, but that is only 5%. So would you rather burn more calories in that workout session, or would you rather strength train, put on lean muscle, and increase your metabolism overall in the long run and burn calories for, days, months, years to come, rather than just in that one session? So side tangent, but hopefully that kind of makes sense. But the thing with EAT, though, is, again, it's still important because it's very much an easy one to manipulate. You can obviously train more intensely, train more, do more things when it comes to exercise. So it is one that if you're like, oh, I'm trying to improve my TDEE, like, that is a place you can absolutely start. It's a small portion, but it's an easy one to increase, right? So that is EAT, or exercise activity thermogenesis. Diving into NEAT. So this one is super underrated, and this is probably the one that you're unfamiliar with. Well, actually, TE, the next one you're probably unfamiliar with too, but NEAT is super underrated. And this is all the activity you do that isn't purposeful exercise. So talking with your hands, cleaning the kitchen, maybe you're lifting your kids up, running around with your kids, walking to the mailbox, like things that you're not like, oh, I'm going to the gym and I intentionally am burning calories. So this actually makes up 15%. And spoiler alert, another spoiler alert, I haven't gotten to the next one, the thermic effect of food yet, but it's not as high as this one. So if you are good at math, this would tell you that this one right here of the non-resting energy expenditure, this is the highest piece, besides the non-rest, or besides the resting one, besides the BMR we talked about earlier, that 70% of the ones that are your non-resting ones, NEAT is the highest one at 15%. Okay. This is why there can be such a stark difference between sedentary people versus non-sedentary people, right? Like people who work a desk job and are sitting all day versus like a teacher, a mailman, a salesperson, somebody who's on their feet. This is why this alone, even if they had workouts the exact same, everything else the exact same, there could be such a difference in their energy expenditure and then their body compositions, their overall health, because this is such a big part, all that non-exercise movement they're doing throughout the day makes a massive difference. This is why you can also have somebody who just burns a ton more calories just because they're more of a fidgety person. They're a high, energy person. Like they could even be a sedentary desk job, but if they're fidgeting around all the time, like that takes energy. So it's absolutely something to think about and be conscious of. And it's a very underrated place where you can make massive increases on your total daily energy expenditure just by being a little bit more conscious of not sitting down all day. So that is NEAT, or non-exercise activity thermogenesis. Lastly, we will dive into TEF. Sorry, I know that these acronyms are tough and big words. So hopefully, maybe I'll put it in the show notes. I will put it in the show notes for you guys. I got your back. Because I know some of you are driving or not taking notes. Don't expect you to. I will also try to not make these as dry. I'm trying, I think I'm sometimes, never mind, whatever. We're just going to keep on rocking here. And I will try to not make them as dry for you guys, but diving into get off track. That's how they won't be dry. I will just be ADD. All right. Thermic effect of food. Reel it back in, Mallory. Thermic effect of food, TEF. Another one that most people do not think about or do not know about. This is how many calories you burn digesting your food. It takes energy to do things like digest your food. you're churning, it's going through your intestines, your body is pulling out the nutrients of it, it's separating the amino acids of your protein and breaking the carbohydrates down into glucose. Like there's a lot of things going on in there. Okay. Takes energy. So a couple ways to look at this. You can either look at it as in like you are burning calories digesting the food you just ate, or you're not absorbing. It's either really the same thing. You can, whatever kind of your brain makes sense of, you are not absorbing the total amount of calories that the food is worth, because some of those are being used to digest it. So what I mean by that is, let's say you eat 100 calories of chicken. Don't quote me on this because there is an exact math. I want to say you don't digest like 10% of your protein. I would have to go back and look, but let's say it's 10%. That means you're actually only absorbing 90% of the calories of that chicken. You're only actually absorbing 90 calories of that. Or you can look at it as I ate 100 calories of chicken and I burned 10 calories, whichever one your brain kind of works better about. And this makes up 10% of your total daily energy expenditure. So even more than exercise, you burn more calories from digesting your food than you do from exercise. Okay. Again, let that sink in. All foods have a different TEF. And the reason, well, not the reason, but one reason that protein is so hyped up, right? Eat a high protein diet. Like it's because we want to build muscle. There's a lot of reasons, but one of them is that it has the highest TEF, meaning that you burn the most calories eating protein. So it is much easier to lean out or stay lean if your diet is higher in protein, because you're not absorbing as many of those calories versus if we're eating fully fat, fully carb. Okay. It does vary on like the type of food, what food, how much you're eating. Like you're going to expend more energy or burn more calories eating 2,000 calories versus 1,200 calories. So I'm going to kind of go over this in a second too, but this is something to think about. Like when you diet, you're decreasing your TEF, right? And you have to keep that in mind. Now you're not burning as many calories through this method as you were when you were eating more. Okay. So just something to think about, but that kind of wraps up the section of, non-resting energy expenditure. So again, we've got our eat or exercise, our NEAT or non-exercise movement, and then our TEF or thermic effect food, how many calories you burn digesting your food. So that is what I wanted you guys to really be able to break down and take away and understand what goes in. All of those things go in. That was those three, and then plus the resting one of BMR or metabolism. Those go into how many calories you are expending every day, or your TDEE, total daily energy expenditure. And when you're thinking, like if you're thinking in terms of like weight loss, right, it's calories in versus calories out. We just went over the entire side of the equation of the calories outside of the equation. Everything I just went over, that is what makes up the calories outside of the equation. So if you can understand that, well, now you know what you need to do from the calories in perspective to reach the goal you want, whether that's weight loss, fat loss, building lean muscle. That's what you need to understand. And here's some other things that I want you to take away too before we wrap up. Number one, these things fluctuate. Okay. So I went over all this and I gave you percents of each one, but they're not perfect and they're not static. Today, I might talk with my hands because I'm doing a podcast recording more than I might tomorrow when I'm not doing a podcast recording, right? So I might have burned more calories through NEAT today than I do tomorrow. It's not going to be this perfect number every single day. Some days you're sitting in meetings all day, then maybe Saturday you're chasing your kids around. You're going to have a higher TDEE on that Saturday than you do on Thursday. So it's not a static thing. And then the next thing is, I think it's always the things that people don't think about when they're confused on why weight loss progress might stall. So for example, maybe your weight loss stalls, right? But you're eating less food. Okay. So your thermic effect food, like I just mentioned, is not as high as it was when you were eating more. Okay. So at some point, like you need to be in a deep enough deficit where you're like overcoming the fact that you're making up for the fact that you burned more calories prior when you were eating more. I hope that made sense. I can't really think of a better way to say it, but basically like that is a portion that's going to decrease, like your TDEE or that calories outside of the equation. Once you start lowering your calories, that calories outside is going to also decrease, right? So it's just something to think about. And then another example, same aspect, like you're eating less food. Well, now you're probably not going to have as much energy and therefore not training as intensely as you were prior. And now your exercise portion of the, your TDEE is less, right? So now the calories output side of the calories outside of the calories in, calories out versus calories out equation is lower because you're not training as hard. You're not expending as much through exercise. So this is why like you can make changes and decrease your food, and like you should see some weight loss, but you might hit a plateau at some point because other parts are also decreasing as well because of the effect that eating less can have on these parts of total daily energy expenditure. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. I remember like that was a big thing that clicked for me too, when I was like, why am I not continuing to see progress? And lastly, just for, something to keep in mind here is metabolism. I emphasized this already, but it's not a static being, and neither is your overall energy output. Okay. It varies every single day, and there's just no perfect answer of how much you should eat. That is like how much you should eat every single day. Like, it's not like if your macros are 1900 calories and whatever macros it is that make up for it, it's not like you burn 1900 calories every day. Like some days it might be 18, some days it might be 2000. Like when you're tracking your food, you're trying your best to find the overall average, because it's not this perfect number that happens every day. Like every day is very, very different. So another thing I kind of didn't realize, like people, and that I hope gives you empowerment to not be so tied to maybe if you're tracking macros, I know it can be easy to become obsessive with it and feel like you have to hit everything to the T. There's obviously value in being very like diligent and coming close to your goals, but they're just goals because it is not this perfect thing. It does vary every single day. But ultimately, the reason I want to do this episode is because most people do want to increase their TDEE. They want to have a higher total daily energy expenditure. They want to burn more calories, because for most people, this makes a lot of things easier. It makes enjoying life a little bit easier, because if you're burning more, you can consume more, and you can maybe have a little bit more flexibility with going out to eat and living life and things like that. Maybe you want to burn more so it's easier for, fat loss, whatever that might look like. So just wanted to finish this episode and wrap up this episode with some top tips for increasing your overall total daily energy expenditure. Number one, the biggest kahuna is strength train. Okay. Strength train, add more muscle mass to your frame, because this is going to increase your basal metabolic rate, which, if you remember from the top of the episode, makes up 70% of the calories you burn in a day. So if you want to have the most impact on your TDEE, it is build lean muscle. Strength train in order to do that. Eat enough food, eat enough protein, build that lean muscle. Okay. Another one is going to be exercise regularly. Yes, this is a small part. It's only 5%, but it's still part of the equation. And like I said earlier, it is the easiest one to increase. So just exercise a little bit more. Eat a high protein diet. This helps improve your thermic effect of food. It's easier to keep leaner. You burn more calories eating more protein than any other type of food. And then also it does help with that first thing of building more lean muscle. Protein is part of that building block if you are strength training. Try to just spend more time on your feet. Don't be fully sedentary. Choose the things that may cause you to just expend more energy that isn't purposeful exercise, like parking a little bit farther away from the grocery store, taking the stairs in your apartment, going on a walk, talking with your hands, cleaning the kitchen. Maybe it's the fact of like, maybe you have a cleaning lady more because you just want to sit on the couch. Maybe, if it's a time thing, I totally get that. But like, maybe if you have the time, you just don't want to do it, like do those things, that has a big part of where you expend energy. And then lastly, do not chronically diet. Okay. This is such a big one that I made a mistake for so long. Do not chronically diet. You pull down all of those things, all of those pieces of TDE we just talked about over time if you chronically diet. Your exercise output is going to be less because you don't have as much energy. Your NEAT is going to be less because you've downregulated, again, your energy, your hormones. You just feel kind of like crap and you're not going to expend as much energy. Your digestion is slowed, so you're not burning calories from digestion. You are going to lose muscle mass, so your BMR is going to decrease. All of these things pull down the amount of energy you expend over time. So while it's okay to go into fat loss phases, do not spend a long period of time always in a diet. It is not good for your metabolism and TDEE overall. So, all right, guys, that is everything. I am going to go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for coming to the first episode of Fast Fit Facts. You heard it here first. The name might change later. I hope this was helpful. If it was, please share, repost on Instagram, tag me, let me know. I would love to know if you guys like this little mini series. I'm excited for ones in the future, and I'll see y'all on the flip side. Just happy to be here and hope you have a great rest of your day.